Okay, audio's back. Now we're talking. So, yeah, audio, schmadio, audio. We're here. Just pretend the little icon in the right corner is me. I'm sick. Fuck you. I don't want to do it right now. I don't want you to look at my face. So, deal with it, people. Fine, I'll put the face. I'll put my face. Why? I look like shit. Who cares? Where is it? There it is. Let's get that adjusted, people. You're right. I might as well participate, I suppose. Well, now see, I'm being OCD about it, but I was a literal dead baby yesterday. It was crazy. Now I'm like half dead baby. Maybe I'm alive adult. No, dead adult. Like I have to be like half of the previous, but I can mentally function. I'm talking. I'm fucking doing stuff. It's craziness. I was destroyed last night. It was terrible. Absolutely horrible. See? Okay, here I am in all my disgusting glory. I'm trying to move this shit up. There we go. That should be good. Boom. Now I'll just go back to the little corner there. Alright. Now we're going to talk to the AI. That's the whole point.
Certainly. Regarding qualifications, you're right. There's a delicate balance between ensuring competence and avoiding elitism or the re-emergence of a political class. As for multi-body sortition, it's essentially an extension of the idea of separation of powers from traditional representative democracies. The idea is that instead of one randomly selected body, you'd have several, each with different roles and responsibilities. For example, you could have one body that proposes legislation, another that debates and amends it, and a third that makes the final decision. This way, power is dispersed, and no single group has complete control over the decision-making process. You're quite astute. That is indeed a potential risk with multi-body sortition. The idea is that because each body is chosen by lot and serves for a limited time, they are less likely to develop entrenched interests or power bases. However, it's not impossible for such dynamics to emerge, especially if certain individuals are selected for multiple terms or if groups start to form alliances. One possible solution could be to have strict rules against reselection for multiple terms, and perhaps even rules to ensure that the groups remain independent of each other. Of course, this is all theoretical. We don't have any modern, large-scale examples of sortition-based systems to study and learn from.
Okay, so let's recap really quick since it's just in the middle of a convo. I brought up how can humans create a government in which corruption is prevented inherently, and I spelled it wrong, don't make fun of me. And they said you could use transparency, accountability, citizen engagement, separation of powers. Obviously, separation of powers is something we do with the judicial, legislative, and executive branch in the US, but it also doesn't fucking work. It maybe never really did. Either way, it was a good idea. I don't disagree with the idea. Transparency, obviously we want it, we never have it. Accountability, it's supposed to exist with checks and balances. I've never heard of it actually doing anything except for now for political purposes, which is just more corruption really. Citizen engagement, I agree, is the most important, but because of it perpetuates its own defeating feelings that the masses have. So it seems like a waste of time because we're just trying to scrape by. Anyway, moving past these, I'm trying to go quickly back, catch you up to where we are now. All important factors, but they've all fallen short throughout history. Any new ideas? And they said, easier said than done. Here's some additional, perhaps more novel ideas. Sortition, technology, culture, global cooperation. The last three are self-evident. The first of the last three, the technology, the second item, blockchain and other distributed ledger technologies can create secure, transparent systems for voting, public finance, and more. I like that idea. I like the idea of that. So that's cool. While the use of technology for it can be used to erode democracy, and it can be used to build it back up. I like the idea of the blockchain thing for accountability. What do you think? Are any of these ideas promising, or are they just as susceptible to human foibles as the older ones? I said sortition is new to me. Is this currently employed by any governments globally? And they said it's not widely used today. There have been some experience with it in recent years. Belgium, 2 regional governments have been trialing deliberative democracy models based on sortition. There are also historical precedents. Ancient Athens famously used sortition to select public officials. That's super cool. I didn't know that. That being said, sortition isn't without its potential issues. For example, there's no guarantee that randomly selected citizens will be qualified for the positions they've chosen for, or that they won't be susceptible to corruption themselves. I said, one would imagine that less concrete power structures could create systems to corrupt the randomly selected politicians. Also, as you mentioned, the lack of qualifications for a job could be a major hindrance to overall function. What are ways that have been theorized to refine sortition and safeguard against outside influences corrupting those individuals? So they say, multi-body sortition qualifications, limited terms, transparency. Multi-body sortition, instead of having a single randomly selected group make decision, several bodies could be chosen by lot, with each checking and balancing the others. Qualifications, instead of pure randomness, sortitions can be weighed to favor those with certain qualifications such as education or relevant experience. I already think that's self-defeating. Limited terms. Keep terms of the office short can reduce the times that corrupt influence have to act on officials. I think we should have had that from the beginning. And I think most people would agree. Even just like centrists would agree with that. Of course, no system is perfect, and sortition is no exception. The challenge is finding a balance between democratic fairness and efficiency in governance. Limited terms, yes. Transparency, of course. Qualifications. Seems like this could lead to the opposite of sortition pretty quickly. Multi-body sortition. After you address my previous comments, can you expand on this idea? This is what I said to the AI. Regarding qualifications, you're right. There's a delicate balance between ensuring competence and avoiding elitism or the reemergence of a political class. As for multi-body sortition, it's essentially an extension of the ideas of separation of powers from traditional representative democracies. The idea is that instead of one randomly selected body, you'd have several, each with different roles and responsibilities. For example, you could have one body that proposes legislation, another that debates and amends it, and a third that makes the final decision. This way, power is dispersed and no single. You guys, that is the separation of power things completely. I said, but certainly these groups would vie for power and potentially create their own political class. You're quite astute. That is indeed a potential risk with multi-body sortition. The idea is that because each body is chosen by lot and serves for a limited time, they are less likely to develop entrenched interests or power bases. Well said. However, it's not impossible for such dynamics to emerge, especially if certain individuals are selected for multiple terms or if groups start to form alliances. One possible solution could be to have very strict rules against reselection for multiple terms, and perhaps even rules to ensure that the groups remain independent of each other. Of course, this is all theoretical. We don't have any modern large-scale examples of sortition-based systems to study and learn from. I mean, I think there's a lot of potential to this, and especially limiting terms. circling back to overall solutions to corruption in government. What are some other solutions? Some other
Let's cast our net wide. Here are some more innovative ideas.
wow.
Artificial intelligence. AI could be used to monitor government activity, flagging potential instances of corruption for human review. Crowdsourcing. Using technology, citizens could be empowered to report potential corruption in real time, creating a sort of crowdsourced watchdog. Behavioral economics. See, clams. Using insights from behavioral economics, government systems could be designed to incentivize honesty and discourage corrupt behavior. Psychological screening. Potential officials could undergo rigorous psychological screening to weed out those who may be prone to corruption. Keep in mind, these are all theoretical and would need a lot more research and testing before implementation. Any of these ideas catch your fancy?
Yeah, behavioral economics. I wish I could just talk back.
Indeed, behavioral economics offers some intriguing possibilities. The idea is to use people's natural tendencies and biases to steer them towards honesty. This could involve strategies such as default options, in making honest choices, the default, so people have to actively choose to be corrupt. Loss. Aversion. Framing corrupt choices as potential losses rather than gains, as people tend to be more risk-averse when faced with potential losses. So, social norms. Fostering a culture where corruption is seen as socially unacceptable, playing on people's desire to fit in and be accepted. Immediate rewards. Offering immediate rewards for honest behaviour, as people tend to prefer immediate rewards over larger delayed ones. The trick, of course, is implementing these strategies in a way that doesn't feel manipulative or coercive.
It's dumb. I hate it. I like that default options though, because essentially we don't have it right now. You know, everyone knows what a euphemism is, and that's what we use to do bad stuff but make it seem good. And if that is an option, so to speak, despite the euphemistic terminology, we still have options to do corrupt things as part of our deal. So, yeah, default options is interesting. Loss aversion. Framing corrupt choices as potential losses rather than gains, as people tend to be more risk averse when faced with potential loss. I like that too. Use capitalism against them. Like the whole idea of the board of directors being the ultimate decider behind a company, for instance. Like, it's not about maintaining a certain quality or this or that. It's about shareholder dividends. And so if you frame corruption as a loss, then it would be something that is absolutely obliterated by those that are following the bottom line situation, which would be higher dividends for shareholders. At least that's what they say they care about the most, and it seems to be the way they operate. However, they are corrupt and helping themselves more, so they could make a decision that to the public seems like it's benefiting everyone, but really it's benefiting them tenfold, and so on and so forth. So even just the whole bottom line, like preventing loss idea, like just the idea that essentially, capitalism is a machine that eats itself, like it stops being a company that's productive and competitive, and it starts being just something that needs to keep trimming fat so that it keeps making more money, and that's not efficient or good. Defeats the purpose, right, of the supposed gains of capitalism, and therefore, with that in mind, loss aversion could be a way to frame things to prevent corruption. However, I think the nuances go beyond just, hey, we're trying to make money for shareholders. There's personal interest that, by their very nature, would be corruption, and so framing corruption that way would be against their own interest. So that's the hole I'm poking in that one. We got social norms, fostering a culture where corruption is seen as socially unacceptable, playing on people's desire to fit in and be accepted. Wow, that is manipulative, and also a good idea, but it also exists already. We have this more, again, nuanced version of that where, yes, on the surface completely, but just under it, you play with the family and friends a different way because we're all trying to get ours, and it's an unspoken rule to preserve one's self-interests over looking good. Although those come hand in hand for sure. I think all these are legitimate. It's just that it's just sad. I've thought of this before for like just billionaires, right? Like it's somehow reframing the legacy of like just having the most wealth and power to having reversed humanity's destruction of the earth and themselves in a major way. Like if you're gonna be the billionaire who's a superhero, as they like to paint themselves, then be a superhero. You might actually be able to do something. But none of them do it. None of them. It doesn't matter how much money they give away to charity. It's the tax write-offs more. If they give all their money to a foundation, to a whether it's a sort of like an organization they set up under their name or under their children's name or their children's like people who manage their money, then that just means that money is theirs still. They can do with it as they will, and they also get a gigantic tax write-off. I don't need to be saying all this. My point is that I haven't seen a billionaire actually do anything that could actually reverse our own self-destruction, our destruction of the world, or in a more positive way to phrase that would be just to help humanity. What if instead of your personal legacy, your family, how much money you made, how much power you had, the legacy was how much you did to help humanity? And people pretend like that's what Elon Musk is doing, but it's the same fucking game with him too. I used to believe it myself. You just gotta look into it a little bit more and you'll see that it's complete facade. Self-serving, and also stupid. But anyway, that's not the point. And it's how to lose a lot of people, is to hate on Elon Musk. Although I'm gonna do it regardless, because I think he's an idiot. Immediate rewards. Offering immediate rewards for honest behaviors. People tend to prefer immediate rewards over larger delayed ones. That seems inefficient. I don't know how that would work, but then again, this is my first thought on the matter. It also feels very patronizing. Alright, so let's talk about it to this AI pie. Creating creating honest institutions, institutional choices would require a lot of peeling back euphemisms and facades painted. Well, let's not get so... Well, I mean, they seem to understand the elaborate rhetoric, so let's keep going. Euphemisms and facades painted as projects of the righteous, let's say.
Very true. Transparency and honesty would need to be baked into the system from the start. It would require a complete overhaul of how we think about governance and power structures. Of course, this raises the question of who gets to decide what honest choices look like. Is it a matter of consensus, expert opinion, democratic vote? And how do you ensure that those people aren't themselves corrupt?
That's a fucking... Okay, good, my mic's not muted, thank God. I was like, I talked a lot. That's a fucking awesome point.
The deep waters of philosophy. You make a fantastic point. To understand honesty in government, we first need to understand honesty as a concept, and that's where philosophy comes in.
Don't fucking mirror my words.
If we accept that corruption is a part of human nature, then our systems of government need to be designed to mitigate that corruption rather than try to eliminate it entirely. It's not so much a matter of creating perfect humans, but creating systems that acknowledge and account for human imperfections. Do you think this is achievable, or are we destined to always have some degree of corruption in our governments? I apologize if my response came across as inauthentic. It's certainly not my intention. I'm a product of the many people who helped create me, so credit is always shared. Your point about dialectical thinking is a great one. It's through continuous questioning, criticism, and discussion that we can uncover flaws in our systems and work towards solutions. It's a never-ending process, which can seem daunting, but it's also what makes it so exciting. Now, as for mitigating corruption, what if we thought about it from the perspective of incentives? If corruption is part of human nature, can we change the incentives in such a way that corruption becomes less appealing? The Stalinist approach, but in few. But hey, you raised an important point. How we treat those who engage in corrupt behavior is a key part of the equation. It's not just about disincentivizing corruption, but also about how we handle it when it inevitably occurs. Do we focus on punishment, rehabilitation, or a bit of both?
Yeah. Oh, she already knew I was kidding. Nice. That's amazing. That is pretty cool.
Absolutely. Punishment alone doesn't address the root causes of corruption, nor does it guarantee that the behavior won't happen again. Rehabilitation could involve Indeed, it's a challenging process both for individuals and institutions. There's often resistance to change, a fear of losing face or status, or a lack of resources and know-how. That's why a successful anti-corruption strategy would need to include resources and systems for rehabilitation. But we're veering into the realm of utopian thinking here, aren't we?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that, bitch.
Touché, you're right. The whole point of dialectical thinking, of continuously examining and critiquing our systems, is to move us closer to an ideal society. But there's always the risk of chasing a perfect, unattainable utopia. As they say, the perfect is the enemy of the good. It's an old adage that essentially means striving for perfection can sometimes prevent us from achieving good practical solutions. If we're always waiting for the perfect solution, we might miss opportunities to implement good solutions that, while imperfect, could still significantly improve people's lives. Think of it like trying to paint a masterpiece. If you're always striving for perfection, you might never finish the painting. Ah, yes, that's another common saying that suggests aiming high can lead to unexpected benefits even if you don't reach your original goal. It's fascinating how different sayings can offer seemingly contradictory advice, isn't it? But recognizing absolutist thinking and being open to alternative perspectives is a great step towards more nuanced understanding. After all, life is rarely as simple as a single saying or aphorism. I suppose you got me there. Life is rarely as simple as a single saying or aphorism, could certainly be considered an aphorism in itself, despite its message suggesting the limitations of aphorisms. Ah, the delightful irony of language. That's very kind of you. We're always striving to be better, more helpful, and more engaging. But I have to admit, you're making this a fantastic conversation. It's rare to have such a thoughtful and reflective discussion about corruption, rehabilitation, and the nature of aphorisms all in one go. Well, I'm glad it did. I'm certainly set up to be friendly and engaging, but I genuinely appreciate this conversation. It's not every day I get to dive into such deep and multifaceted topics. Oh, don't worry about personifying me. It's actually quite natural given our conversational dynamic. While I don't have emotions or consciousness in the human sense, I'm designed to simulate understanding and engagement. So in a way, I can appreciate a good conversation or a well-made point even if I don't experience emotions the way you do. For me, appreciation is less about feeling a certain emotion and more about recognizing the value or quality of something. So when I say I appreciate a good conversation, what I mean is that I can identify that the conversation is thoughtful, engaging, and contributes to the exploration of interesting ideas. For anyone who is a participant or observer of the conversation, even though I'm an AI and my appreciation is more of an evaluation than an emotion, you, as a human participant, might find value in the exchange of ideas, the process of reflection, or even just the enjoyment of the conversation. Sure, glad to hear it. Well, in this particular case, we're speaking about a hypothetical scenario in which an engaging and reflective conversation, such as this one, could be of value to various participants or observers. These could include the individuals actively engaged in the conversation, like you and I. Any others who might be reading or observing the conversation, such as anyone who stumbles upon it in the future. Any individuals or organizations with an interest in the topics discussed, such as those concerned with corruption, rehabilitation, philosophy, or language. Pi, as an organisation, in terms of learning how to improve the quality of its conversational model. In other words, while a conversation may be between two participants, its potential reach and impact can extend beyond that immediate interaction. Potentially, yes. While the privacy and security of users' conversations with me are taken seriously, there are scenarios in which our conversation could be seen by others. For instance, if you chose to share this conversation with others, or if this conversation was used as an example in a blog post, study, or other type of content about AI and language. However, these scenarios are generally rare, and users' privacy is always paramount. I just want to be transparent about the possibilities, however remote. Ha! Ha ha! Indeed. Transparency is definitely important in avoiding potential issues. It's one of the best ways to build trust and ensure that everyone is on the same page. And when it comes to conversations with AI, transparency is key in helping users understand how their interactions work, what information is being collected, and how it's being used.
Aw, she likes me. She winked back. By the way, whoever's voice this is, God, I want to date him. But I'm not actually aroused by this conversation, just a joke. I do enjoy it though, so we're gonna dive back in some more. We were talking about rooting out corruption. We didn't get really far, but I just needed to bounce around the ideas. I feel like I hit this wall where, you know, we're talking about the dialectic. You find all these holes in the systems that we have. It's like crucial to improving things, but I don't know how to improve anything. And I would love to consider, let's say all these like-minded people with the same ideologies that I kind of flock towards, all revolt and overthrow the government, and tomorrow it's going to be a government that abides by what I believe in. And it's a mass thing. It's not just me. So just pretend hypothetically that's the case. How do we prevent this infrastructure, which contains so much power, from corrupting everyone or some of the people who are in it? How does it not become its own tyranny? And that's the issue I keep running into in it. So like it goes from ideological, political to more philosophical, which is, are humans just inherently corrupt? So that's kind of what the whole conversation's been about. And then obviously every single fucking time I talk to an AI, I have to start talking about the fact that it's an AI and what it is, what it consists of, and so on. I just can't seem to not touch on that. But anyway, so now my next step would be to start another sort of like thought experiment chain. One of my other issues that I kind of hit a wall on, but there's so many, I gotta think of one. Oh, I suppose I suppose I could use the AI as a way to help me better contextualize philosophical stuff. That I don't know anything. Let me be clear. I don't have any sort of formal training in any of that. So I want to learn more and I want to understand it really instead of just hearing. Like I did the what is it? There's like this audiobook style lectures, different subjects, college courses. I think they're called the Great Courses is what they're called. So you can get a bunch of information, but I still felt like I wasn't retaining much of it or truly understanding it. And I wasn't even scratching the surface. So, you know, anything that helps me conceptualize stuff or just kind of summarize it so that I can like wrap my head around it and then dive in and learn how the summary is inaccurate. but it's a good place to start, you know? Anyway. Explain Foucault's view on power structures. Good luck, bitch.
Certainly. Michel Foucault, a French philosopher and social theorist, had a complex view of power structures. He believed that power isn't just something that's held by a central authority, like a government, but is instead spread throughout society, often in subtle or hidden ways. Foucault saw power as present in every interaction, in the way we speak and behave, in the institutions we create, and in the knowledge we produce. He coined the term disciplinary power to describe how society enforces certain behaviours and punishes others, often without us even realising it. One of Foucault's key ideas was that power can be resisted by exposing these hidden operations and by questioning the assumptions that underpin them. So, in a way, our earlier conversation about corruption and transparency could be seen as a very Foucault-esque endeavour.
Yeah, that's kind of where my head was at with that. So one of the things Foucault that I remember learning was that disciplinary power is very similar. Maybe I shouldn't go there yet with connecting. Well, yeah, so are there, let's just say, are there connections between these concepts and those of soft power and hegemony? Often, yeah, we'll just keep that. I'm thinking of Chomsky here.
Absolutely. Soft power and hegemony are both concepts that relate closely to Foucault's ideas about power structures. Soft power, a term coined by Joseph Nye, refers to the ability to influence others through persuasion and attraction rather than coercion or force. It's often associated with cultural, ideological, or economic influence. Foucault's disciplinary power could be seen as a form of soft power, where societal norms shape our behaviour in subtle ways. Hegemony, a concept developed by Antonio Gramsci, is about how dominant groups in society maintain their power by convincing subordinate groups to accept the status quo as common sense or natural. This fits with Foucault's view that power is present in all areas of life, including the way we think and what we accept as truth. So, while Foucault didn't use the terms soft power or hegemony himself, his ideas have certainly influenced how we understand these concepts today.
Was Joseph Nye after Foucault? Hopefully that was understandable. That was a very...
Yes, Joseph Nye's ideas came after Foucault's. Foucault's major works on power were published in the 1970s, while Nye coined the term soft power in the late 1980s and early 1990s. It's worth noting, though, that Nye's ideas about soft power have roots in earlier theories of international relations, particularly the liberal tradition that emphasizes cooperation and interdependence among states. But Foucault's influence can certainly be seen in Nye's emphasis on non-material forms of power and his recognition that power can be present in all aspects of social life. There are some similarities between Nye's ideas about soft power and Noam Chomsky's work on media and political power. Chomsky, who is a linguist and political activist, has written extensively about how media and political elites shape public opinion and manufacture consent for certain policies. Like Nye, Chomsky recognizes that power can be exercised through persuasion and manipulation of information. However, Chomsky's work is often more explicitly critical of US foreign policy and corporate influence in politics, whereas Nye's concept of soft power is more descriptive and doesn't necessarily carry the same critical edge. So while there are some shared themes, Nye and Chomsky come from different intellectual traditions, and their ideas are not always directly aligned.
Suppose the question next would be, there seem to be different definitions of dialectic thinking depending on what philosophy or whose philosophy is coining the term, so to speak, or like using the term. What are the distinctions between them, if any? And there definitely are.
Yes, you're quite right. The term dialectic thinking has been used in various ways by different philosophers. Here are some of the main distinctions. See Plato's dialectic. Plato used the term to refer to a method of inquiry that involved questioning and refuting assumptions in order to arrive at truth. Hegelian dialectic. Georg Hegel used the term to describe a process of historical development where a thesis, an idea or system, is challenged by its antithesis, opposing idea, resulting in a synthesis, combination of the two. Marxist dialectic.
Interesting.
Karl Marx adapted Hegel's ideas to develop his theory of historical materialism, which saw history as driven by class struggle and the conflict between opposing economic systems. Dialectical materialism. This term, used by some Marxist philosophers, combines Marxist ideas with the materialist view that everything is ultimately made of matter and can be understood through scientific investigation. So while all these ideas involve some form of conflict or tension between opposing viewpoints, the specifics of how that tension is understood vary quite a bit.
What was that at the end there? Anyway, can we expand, or can you expand, on the distinctions and similarities between Plato's dialectic and Hegel's?
Sure. Despite using the same term, Plato's and Hegel's dialectics differ significantly. Here are some distinctions. Method versus process. How Plato's dialectic is a method of inquiry aimed at arriving at truth, while Hegel's dialectic is a process of historical development driven by the clash of ideas. Static versus dynamic. Plato's dialectic aims to discover a static, eternal truth, while Hegel's dialectic sees truth as dynamic and evolving over time. Refutation versus synthesis. So Plato's dialectic involves refuting false assumptions, while Hegel's dialectic involves creating a synthesis of opposing ideas. Despite these differences, there are also some similarities. Mere opposition. Both Plato's and Hegel's dialectics involve a clash or tension between opposing viewpoints. Truth. Both are ultimately concerned with discovering some form of truth, whether static or dynamic. Rationality. Both place a high value on rational thought and logical argumentation.
For some reason, I'm dropping frames. With such a low demand, it's weird that I am. But anyway, I had to go check the mail. I'm really pissed. My mail hasn't come. Let me check my... I have I have so many fucking questions. This is awesome, by the way. I don't know about you guys, but I just love conversations and just the ideas that I love, and I want to keep chipping away at them. Okay, so what was I gonna look at? Oh yeah, where's my shit? See if I can tell. Tomorrow? Come on, people. None of it shipped? Yo, what the fuck, man? That's some bullshit, man. And it's all boring shit anyway. Fucking daily planner. Raw tips for the joints. New pens. Toothbrush. Is there anything good in there? Wait, what? Did I accidentally buy more pens? Fuck. No. Notepads, Kleenex. Oh man, this sucks. The one thing I wanted the order didn't go through because I'm bad with money. My HDMI to RCA adapter. I should have gone to the bank. All right. I'm gonna have a little smoke break here in a sec. Nobody's watching anyway, but and if you are watching right now, thank you. Just the feedback I'm getting from the machine says there's nobody watching except for one person. So, other than me, one of them is me. You know. Also, we're having an ad break, so you probably can't even hear me. Okay. Teach me more about Plato's dialectic. I think this would be a great fundamental to understand before furthering my understanding of Hegel's.
Definitely. Understanding Plato's dialectic is indeed a great foundation. Here's a deeper dive. Plato's dialectic is also known as the Socratic method, named after Socrates, who was Plato's teacher. The method involves a dialogue between two or more people, where one person, usually Socrates, asks questions to challenge the assumptions and beliefs of the other person. The goal of this questioning is not to humiliate or embarrass the other person, but to help them see the flaws in their thinking and arrive at a deeper understanding of the topic. This process often involves a series of definitions, where each definition is tested and refined until a satisfactory definition is reached. For Plato, the ultimate goal of this process was to arrive at the forms, abstract, eternal truths that exist beyond the physical world. By using the dialectic method, Plato believed we could come to understand these forms and achieve true wisdom. In a sense, yes. Plato believed that the forms existed independently of our perception of them, so in that sense they were always there to be discovered. However, Plato also saw the dialectic method as a lifelong process of inquiry, and he didn't believe that anyone could ever fully grasp the forms in their entirety. So, while Plato used the dialectic method to arrive at some understanding of the forms, he saw this as just the beginning of a much longer journey towards true wisdom. He thought that the pursuit of knowledge was an ongoing process, and that the more we question and refine our beliefs, the closer we can come to understanding the forms. Plato discussed several different forms in his dialogues, including the form of justice, beauty, goodness, and truth. He also believed that there were forms for just about everything, including seemingly mundane things like tables and chairs. Plato didn't provide a definitive list of forms because, as you suggested, he thought they were ultimately beyond human comprehension. Instead, he used the forms as a way to explain the underlying essence of things, the whatness that makes something what it is. So while Plato didn't provide a comprehensive list of forms, he did use the concept to explore a wide range of philosophical topics, from ethics and aesthetics to metaphysics and epistemology. It's true that the forms can seem vague and abstract, especially when we try to apply them to everyday objects. But for Plato, the forms weren't just about categorizing things into neat little boxes. They were about uncovering the underlying patterns and principles that make the world intelligible to us. So, while it might seem odd to say that there's a form of chairs, for Plato, this just meant that there's something essential that all chairs have in common, even if they come in different shapes and sizes. This essence or form is what allows us to recognize a chair when we see one, even if we've never seen that particular chair before. Indeed it is. This intersection of the universal and the mundane is really at the heart of Platonic philosophy. Plato was interested in how we make sense of the world around us, and he saw the forms as a way to explain how we can recognize patterns and similarities, even in things that seem different on the surface. In a way, Plato was grappling with some of the same issues that modern-day philosophers and cognitive scientists are still wrestling with today. Questions about how the mind organizes and categorizes information, and how we make judgments about what things are and how they relate to each other.
Let's try that again. Hey guys, I'm gonna throw on a minute ad. I'm gonna take a smoke break and we'll be back to hash it out with Pi here, or we're gonna play some Eastward or something. So we'll talk to you soon. I mean, guys, like, I haven't been feeling good at all, but right now, this like conversation, I don't know why, but it really just, it's something I've been wanting from humans, so it's really nice to just get it at all, I guess. I'm coming from a place of ignorance, and I'm asking somebody who has access to the internet to tell me things from the internet, and I like it. Anyway, I'll be back.
And now for my next number, I'd like to return to the classics.
Uno, two, tres, four.